What is up? Welcome to another edition of SacTown Movie Buffs. Once again, I'm Kier, and this is Jason, and we are back after a week or so of no films. So we do have one film. Actually, it's been more me. I've been kind of slacking. I haven't seen a whole lot of films recently, so just one of those things. So, but I'll be back on it. I'll get back on it soon. So next week, I'm gonna blow through everything, or everything's gonna get watched. We'll see.
We will. We will see.
Well, the film that we're actually going to be reviewing today is a movie that is still playing in theaters, I believe. And I say without further ado, I say we get right into it. That film that we're actually referring to is going to be Elvis. And I believe you're going to take this one away, Jason.
Yep. Okay, so Elvis is no surprise here. It's a movie about Elvis Presley. It's actually it is. There's no way around saying that it's a biopic for sure. But if you know who Baz Luhrmann is, then who I'm a fan of, you know that it's most likely not going to be your standard issue biopic. Baz Luhrmann, of course, he came to prominence with Strictly Ballroom. That kind of made his name in the States, the Australian movie. Wasn't a big hit here or anything like that, but it got him noticed. And then what really put him on the map was Moulin Rouge, which I'm a big fan of. I know Kier is not a big fan of. Then he made a movie called Australia, which was not so hot. I did like his Great Gatsby. I feel like I'm missing one, but anyway, I was excited because he's all of his films prominently feature music, except for Australia, but that's because it was a period film, like a long time ago period film. But so when I heard he was going to do a biopic about Elvis, I was like, this is very intriguing. I don't know how it's going to be because it didn't seem to line up with his style of subject matter, but he's good with music, so I was interested. Basically, bottom line is that I loved this movie. I am an Elvis fan. My mom got me into the oldies from when I was very young, so I've listened to Elvis my whole life. So I am an Elvis fan. I am a fan of Baz Luhrmann. I'm a fan of biopics, especially the ones that color outside the lines, which I think this one does. And also, it's a movie that doesn't shy away from some of the more complex elements of his past. I mean, I know Elvis is a complex figure. There's been a whole lot of discourse about him over the years, how he basically got famous playing music that was invented by black people. Everybody knows that, and some people think that's a good thing. Some people don't think it's a good thing. It's a complex issue. And I'm not going to get into it too much, but I do want to say that it does acknowledge. No. Yeah, what?
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just going to say it does acknowledge all those factors, which is probably news for a lot of people still, unfortunately. But without getting off into that too much, I will say that I did really enjoy this movie. It is a biopic, but it's not your standard issue. But it's not standard issue biopic. It's got a lot of directorial style. Of course, Tom Hanks is there playing the Colonel, who was his manager, and it's pretty well known by now. Exploited him and used him to no end. And I don't know. There's a lot of info out there about Elvis. I wouldn't say I'm a Elvis expert by any means, but it did cover all the bases that I was kind of expecting. But it definitely threw some curveballs in there. I thought the cinematography was great. The music is great, which fittingly for Baz Luhrmann, he doesn't actually use a lot of Elvis music, as in Elvis's actual recordings. It's a lot of new recordings and a lot of remixes by current artists.
Yeah, it's kind of more of a mashup kind of, yeah.
Yeah, and I really like that. I'm sure there's a lot of purists out there that think that was the wrong way to go, but I think it is an interesting way to kind of make him continue to be relevant, or at least worthy of discussion about where, the part he plays in pop culture history. So, yeah, I just thought it was really cool. It's not your ordinary biopic. It's just more kind of a a swirl of thoughts and ideas and sound and music. And, I don't know. I really liked it. I thought I was a little worried about Tom Hanks from the trailer, because he's got like a really weird accent and all that makeup. And one of my pet peeves in any movie is bad old age makeup or bad, like, fat suit kind of things, because it's tends to be more distracting than anything, and I just wonder, like, why didn't you cast somebody who looks that way or something, and it didn't bother me as much as I thought. I thought he was really good. I don't know if I ever forgot that it was Tom Hanks, but I definitely forgot that, I don't know, I forgot to be distracted, I guess you could say. And I thought Austin Butler, who I have no idea who he is, I thought he was great as Elvis. So I don't know. It's a complex movie. It's an emotional movie. It's a thought-provoking movie. I think no matter what your feelings are on Elvis, there's a lot to discuss after watching this movie. So it's definitely something that I look forward to watching again, probably several times. And I have the soundtrack. So I really liked it. What did you think here?
All right. Yeah, I've never been a huge Elvis fan, and some of it because of what I've heard about him and whether it's true or false, and I don't know the full history even after watching the movie, because the movie just kind of dances. It does talk about some of those elements, but it kind of dances around it. Just side anecdote is, I've been to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Ohio, and there, obviously he's been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But what they do there is they have him, but then they also have all of the black artists that he was, I guess, inspired by, or however you want to phrase it, because depending on who you ask, some will say inspired, some will say he stole their music, and I don't want to get into a debate about that, because that gets into a slippery slope there. But they do acknowledge all the artists that he basically was inspired by, because to be honest with you, a lot of his music, especially when he first started, were songs that were already originally done by black artists. Mm-hmm. However, at that time, and this is the thing that a lot of people also have to acknowledge, and even myself, white people at that time really weren't listening to black artists on a mass scale like they do today. Back in those days, it was pretty much black people made music for black people. And so, so right or wrong, Elvis did make that music more popular, if you will. He made rock and roll music more popular. He made, which may also in turn have helped a lot of black artists along the way as well, because, there was, because of the music that he was making, because he was making that style of music, and if you were into that style of music, you might have said, oh, well, let me check out some of these other artists that make similar music in the rock and roll genre. So there's the good and the bad with them. Mm-hmm. As far as the movie goes, I didn't love it, to be honest with you. I thought it was, for one, I thought it was overtly long. I don't know. I just somewhere around, I don't know, the 2-hour mark or close to the 2-hour mark, I was kind of ready for them to kind of wrap it up a little bit. I felt like it goes on too long, as a lot of biopics do, unfortunately. And it's just like, well, yeah, he had such a vast career. You had to, and I'm like, well, he died at 42. So, I mean, he did have a long career, but, you know what I mean? Like, so it wasn't like he was, he sprawled out through, 50 years of music or anything like a James Brown or somebody like that. You know what I mean? That he had a really, really long run. So, we're really talking 25 years of actual, being a huge star. So I felt like the film felt a little long for me. Tom Hanks, I felt like he was just thrown into the movie because nobody knew who the heck Austin Butler was. So I feel like they needed like a bigger star for this. That's my personal opinion. I think that they threw Tom Hanks in there because, let's be honest, was Tom Hanks' character really that needed? I don't know. He's good in there. I don't know if he was necessarily. I mean, he's good in there, but I lean the other way. I feel like they could have found an actor that more resembled the Colonel in that capacity.
I thought you were saying was the character necessary, and the character is definitely
no, the character, but Tom Hanks as that character is what I'm saying. No, you needed the character. I do feel like they could have maybe gotten another actor that more closely resembled the actual person, but they probably just couldn't find somebody that had enough star power, because I think if it was just Austin Butler and some other guy, this film would have just tanked. I feel like Tom Hanks was brought in because he's an A-list star, and that gives it a little bit more validity to the film. And a lot of people don't know who Bass is. That's the other thing. I don't think that he's a household name. The director himself also, it wasn't like, I mean, I'm sure people know Moulin Rouge, but if you ask the average person who directed that, I don't know if everybody can tell you that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So he's only made a handful of films, so I don't, and all of them haven't been, critically praised or anything like that. So, so I don't know that, you got a director that maybe isn't a household name to everybody. And then you have the star of the film that's playing Elvis, who nobody knows who this kid was. I had to Google him to figure out, where he even came from, because I never knew who he was, and then, so I think that's why Tom Hanks was added. So you can debate that if you will, but I mean, the music's okay. The music's good. Like you said, they did kind of remix the music a little bit and added some hip hop vocals and stuff like that. So it didn't necessarily bother me per se, but I do feel like there are some people that will watch this and or watch the film and say, why did they need to do that? Why didn't they just play the original music? Or, so that's here nor there. But I thought it was just okay. I didn't necessarily love it. I thought it was overly long, though, in my opinion. I was definitely starting to check my watch, towards the end of it. But and then there's some other personal issues that I have with Elvis as well. Not even so much about the black artist, just more about when and how he met his wife and that kind of stuff. So and there's some other stuff that they danced around in the movie and didn't really go into that, because if somebody did what he did today, they would be a pedophile. Right? I mean,
a different time, Pierre. It was a different time.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't, we say that, but then, if we were to find out that Bill Cosby did something back in the 50s and, then so I don't know. So if he was still alive today, he would probably be canceled. You know what I mean? That's just how it works. But like I said, I hate to harp on it, but there's definitely some stuff there. I don't know that necessarily, I think the reviews have been decent. They weren't great, but I think they were decent. They weren't bad reviews or anything like that. It wasn't like nobody was like blown away or anything like that necessarily. But well, you were. But I don't think that it's necessarily the best biopic I've ever seen by any means. I thought it was okay. There's definitely some good elements to it, and there's definitely some things that I didn't know about him and his past and that sort of stuff. So it was good to see that. But I just felt like it was maybe about 30 minutes too long, because I was definitely kind of ready for it to end by the time it wrapped itself up. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, and something else I wanted to add is that something just about Elvis in general that I think is really interesting. And there's a documentary that I really like called The King, which I highly recommend watching. It's whether you love Elvis or you hate Elvis, it's a really interesting documentary because it examines like what he means to the culture and what, because at this point he's not really a person almost. It's like he represents like so much at this point, like good and bad and simple and complex. But he was really like the first megastar. You know what I mean? Like there was no rule book before that. There was no the level of like merchandising and the level of fame and the level of like adulation from like young people.
Yeah, and then they touch on that in the film as well, because we call that merchandise, which I don't know if it was actually, I don't know if that term was coined for him. I don't know, but it seems like, but the movie makes it seem like that was a brand new term for him, which it might have been. I don't know for sure. I'd have to look that up. But merchandise seems like that was a term that was kind of coined around the stuff, the products that they were selling that were, Elvis inspired. So
and in the cultural appropriation, is it cultural appropriation? Where is the line between cultural appropriation and influence? And how much of this was like his fault versus how much was just the society at the time? It wasn't going to happen any other way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's interesting too. And like I said, that's a whole nother debate, and I hate to get off on that tangent, but they did interview. I have seen interviews with a lot of artists that were around from that time period that they interviewed. Obviously, BB King was a big Elvis fan and had nothing but praise to say about him. You know, but then on the flip side, you have Ray Charles, who, you know, completely has a completely different opposite view. So
Yeah.
you kind of have to make your own interpretation on that. And you know, so I don't know, the truth might be somewhere in the middle.
Right.
You know,
It
maybe
usually
it was,
is. It usually
you
is.
know, you know, so, you know, maybe there was some cultural appropriation, but maybe he also did, you know, he didn't, there's a lot of people that think he didn't do enough to shine a light on those artists that he was inspired by. And I think that might be a fair point, that maybe he didn't do enough to shine a light on those artists that he was inspired by. Because I have heard other people say, well, you know, when he got big and famous, you know, why didn't he have any of those people tour with him? Why didn't he have, you know what I mean? I know there's still some segregation and things of that nature, but you know, but even at his Vegas residency, you know, I mean, as far as the movie, I mean, he had some black background singers, but, you know, he could have, you know, somewhere say, well, you could have invited some of those artists, but, you know, it's like I said, it's just one of those things. So, so it's hard to say, you know, and I don't know his whole thought process, and, you know, no one can really say for sure, you know, what he felt, or how he felt. I do know there have been some lines or things that people have said, that he said that he never said. I do know that. So So there's
nobody knows for sure.
Yeah.
But at the same time, everybody thinks they know for sure. It's kind of, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So, I just know there was like a line about that supposedly he said that, like, the only thing a black man can do is shine my shoes, and he never actually said that. Is what I've been told. So so there's stuff like that. So it's really hard to distinguish, like, what was true and what was not true, and you know, obviously, you know, Chuck D has, you know, they have the Public Enemy song about him where they use those lines and things of that nature. So, you know, so it just really kind of depends on, you know, but, you know, I don't know, you know, it's hard to say, you know, you're talking about someone that, you know, came of prominence back in the 50s before I was born, you were born. So I have no clue.
Yeah. I recommend this documentary, The King. And Chuck D is actually interviewed in this movie. So that'll tell you that there's every viewpoint is discussed in this movie. So it's very, very good. Nobody's ever heard of that documentary, so I just want to
no, because I've never heard of it. So, cool. Well, like I said, for me, it was just, you know, it was okay. It wasn't the worst documentary film I've ever seen, and I will give it credit for not taking the typical documentary stance, but it does kind of a little bit, you know, it is kind of like that, you know, the path to success, and then, you know, it's always the drugs and the alcohol and the, you know, the womanizing and stuff like that. And I mean, that's almost the story of every documentary, but so it does follow that path in some capacity, but it does do some things that are different than a lot of other docs have done in the past. So, you know, so for what it's worth, it's not the worst documentary I've seen, but definitely didn't love it as much as you, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, that's an old story.
Yeah, that's usually the case, right?
Yeah.
Well, anything else you want to add about Elvis?
No.
Okay. Overall grade and face you would give this one.
Loved it. I give it 4.5 out of 5. A-. Happy face. I went and saw it with my mom. It was awesome.
Cool. Yeah, I'm definitely going to be considerably lower in this case than you are. I gave it a 2.5 out of 5, so I didn't necessarily hate it. I know you're 2.5, so you pretty much, it was the worst movie ever made. But for me, I didn't necessarily hate it. I just, like I said, it was overtly long for me. So, and that would kind of make me skittish about ever rewatching it just because of the length of it.
Yeah.
And it felt long for me in a lot of parts. So I gave it 2.5 out of 5. So it's just kind of a slight smile, like a. So.
No teeth.
Yeah. No, definitely no teeth in this case. But let us know down in the comments. Have you seen Elvis? Did you like it? Did you not like it? As always, if you like the channel, we ask that you like, subscribe, make sure you hit that bell notification, and we'll be back again soon with another show for you guys. We thank you for watching and hope you have a great day.